Hi, my name is Thass, and this is going to be a VOD review of Light versus Acola from the Gimvitational a few months back. I think the set is really interesting, given the context of what we're talking about in the meta right now, right? We're looking at Steve, we're looking at what the counterplay is to this character, because Steve mains are rising really fast, and we're not entirely sure how to deal with the character right now, and so I think what this set has information-wise is pretty useful. And I also think it's interesting within the context of the set itself in the tournament, because this was a loss for Light. This was 3-1 in Acola's favor. But at this same tournament, he played Yanni, another top-level Steve main, and he beat them 3-0 in a pretty dominating fashion. And so thinking about what he did versus Yanni and what he did versus Acola, I think is really interesting. For context of the matchup, I think that Steve beats Fox. I think that Steve's main weakness in neutral is that he has a lack of range and a lack of burst range. And while Fox can abuse the lack of a burst range, if Fox does not have a lead, he has to come up and scrap with Steve. And Steve's tilts, his jabs, is pretty hard for Fox to contest. There are like very certain ways he can, but because they're so fast, it can be pretty tricky to go in and not get snagged by Steve by his tilts and his jab. He also has really good anti-airs against Fox, right? The up tilt and the up smash are both really good anti-airs. And he also has a pretty good out of shield game, specifically at lower percents and kill percent. Because at lower percents, he has parry jab, or just like jab out of shield, or even his grab, while it's not a great out of shield option. If you are messing up on a shield, all of these things lead to pretty big damage. And then at kill percents, he has footstool out of shield, which is frame 4. And if he really needs to get out of the pressure, he can use that earlier, at earlier percents as well. So that's really nice. And then also, Steve's advantage state is really good against Fox for two main reasons. One, Fox is a fast faller, and so he gets hit by a lot of things that maybe other characters wouldn't get hit by. He doesn't. He gets pick looped, but what's more important is the jab loops across stage, right into the forward air off stage, which can be pretty problematic. And also because he's a fast faller, he might get hit by more up tilts in those up tilt strings than say other characters of his weight class would. And then speaking of his weight class, Fox is really light, and Steve has a lot of kill power. You take a look at his diamond sword; it's really big, and that's one thing. But also, gold, minecart, and anvil are really strong. And anvil, being an out of shield option, frame 4 is pretty insane, right? In this set, Light dies sub 85 twice to those moves in situations where you're like, oh, really? Huh. And I don't believe DI is always a factor, right? And even if it is, like the fact that you could die at those percents is insane, especially as Fox, where he's killing pretty consistently around 100, 105. So the fact that you're dying pretty early to Steve is pretty not great. Not to say that Fox doesn't have tools in the matchup that are useful. His advantage state on Steve is pretty good just because Steve doesn't have a great way of swatting underneath him other than Anvil, and Anvil is slow. So it's kind of like a call out rather than just a get off me tool. And more importantly, when he does have to get out of disadvantage, he normally has to use one iron or two. You'll see Acola do that a lot in this set. And this compounds on itself because Fox is also really good at making Steve uncomfortable to mine, right? He's really fast and his burst range is significantly bigger than Steve's. And so he can just be in Steve's vicinity. And what happens is Steve could mine, but he's also uncomfortable. He feels like he has to swat Fox away because before Steve can get a really good mine going, or before he can set up a wall, or before he can get new tools, he essentially has to win neutral. And so it can pressure Steve into swatting earlier than he may want to, or things like that. And so if Fox has a lead, then neutral can be less problematic than usual. A lead matters a lot in this matchup because it determines essentially who's forced to approach who. And typically Fox is not the one who wants to be approaching just because of how good Steve's grounded tools are. And that's what I think the context of the matchup is. If what I'm talking about here is interesting, or you find what I'm saying useful, and you'd like one of these for your own gameplay, I'm going to be doing VOD reviews as a service. There's more information on my Twitter with prices and things like that. It'll be linked in the description. I'm going to carry this out like I was doing a VOD review. So I've taken notes, but it's not going to be super scripted. I feel like that would kind of defeat the purpose. Show it wouldn't really show my thought process while I'm looking at it. And I think that just keeping it more of a free flow nature type thing is more helpful. Trying to think of anything else. Also, if you're interested in this gameplay, watch the tournament on VG Bootcamp's YouTube channel. That'll also be linked in the description, right? Not my gameplay, things like that. Other than that, I think it's time to get started. So initially, this game starts on PS2, and I think that's fair. I think that Fox does pretty well on the stage. It's often where I take people for neutrals, and honestly, if I'm not really sure where to take someone, going to PS2 is a pretty surefire way of keeping things neutral. Right, the space is nice. The platforms are conducive to combos. The blast zones are pretty nice because they're semi wide on the outskirts, and they're pretty normal ceiling. That's really nice. It's also a really good Steve stage because the platforms create really nice barriers when he sets up walls, and the space is nice so that way he can reset. And additionally, he only mines iron blocks, or not iron blocks, excuse me, stone blocks. He only mines stone on this stage. So he's constantly getting better materials. And stone is typically a pretty problematic block for Fox, so that's nice. So it makes sense. I think every time Light loses, he takes him back to PS2, and I agree with that. I think that most of the time in this set, Light's not losing because of the blocks or because of the stage itself. I think there are other interactions that are causing the loss here. So it makes sense, and I think he knows this. Just like I said before, the lead's really important, and that's why Light immediately runs up and tries to clip him with the forward air. He wants to see if Acola's going to mine on this platform, or if he's going to chill in this vicinity, or if he's going to jump back, right? He immediately comes up and it's like, I need to win neutral, I need to have the lead. And so that's why he starts that scrap immediately. And he does this essentially throughout the entire set. He could also be stopping Steve from starting a block wall, just in case, and he's immediately over here, over where the block wall would be, over here. So that's really nice. And this up tilt here, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's really good because if you saw here, Light flashed his shield, and immediately Acola started running in with that up tilt. I believe that these first two up tilts were planned. I think he would have done them regardless if they hit or not. And the reason I think that is because he saw Light flash the shield. And in this case, it's really good for Acola, right? He saw Light flash the shield, and then this time Light dropped it, so he got hit by both up tilts. In theory, if Light kept up the shield, then he would have started up tilt pressure on Fox's shield. That first up tilt's really safe, and that second up tilt probably would have caught a jump out of shield, which is a pretty typical option for Fox players. Does that make sense? I think it's just a really good play by Acola. If I were Light, then I probably, instead of shielding, after I missed, I probably would have dashed back and taken center. Steve may or may not have been able to start mining or something like that, but I think that dash back would have been nice because that shield mix-up is one of the neutral win conditions for Steve in this matchup, I'd like to think. And so just like letting him come in on your shield isn't super great. I'd also like to point out that Light is a vastly better player than I am. And so when I talk about these things, I'm not trying to push the idea that like I know better than Light, because I do not, right? I will be showering him in praise throughout this as well. But these are just like things that I think that if he were to go back and he were to look at it, I think that's probably where he went wrong in this scenario, starting the shield. I think the dash back would have been helpful. But yeah, I'm not trying to boast myself as someone who is better than Light. That's not my prerogative. I just think it's interesting to look at this set, and I hope that maybe showing my insight could help those who are watching the set and were wondering what the solutions were. Okay. And you'll see here, Light's SDIing up and away, which is good, right? You want to SDI up to get less up tilts, and then you want to SDI away to force Steve to move with you, right? Just makes the combo harder. Maybe not untrue, but it just makes the Steve have to work just a little bit harder. Right. I really like this back air from Acola, because essentially he jumps up here, trying to swat Light out of the air, and then Light double jumps up, and then Acola goes, okay, I'm going to defend center right here, and I'm going to throw out this back air. I think it might have been preemptive. It's a really nice back air, and I think it probably would have auto-canceled if he like didn't fast fall here, or especially if he landed on the floor, which is really nice. Yeah. See, it auto-canceled. And then he immediately won neutral, and as soon as he won neutral, he got to improve his tool. Right? A big part of neutral, like I was talking about before, is making Steve uncomfortable and wanting him to swat first. That's what this dashing is for. Light dashes in, Acola says, oh, crap, he's coming at my ass. And then he throws out this dash attack. Light, knowing this, throws out the shield, gets that. This is a very specific matchup thing, but if Steve has better tools than Wood, then nothing is release shieldable, if that makes any sense, where you can't punish it by releasing shield and pick an option. They are all safer than -12, I think. So in this case, Light could have gone for a grab, an out of shield Nair, Dare. Fair wouldn't hit, but Nair, Dare starting a combo there. But it was just like a missed thing. And he was slow by a few frames, and the jab did not come out in time. Right. The setup here, Acola did the TNT like little thing. It's essentially like throwing the dodgeball high, like getting Light to think about, oh, okay, and then throwing the second dodgeball, which is that down smash there. He was trying to catch Light hanging on the ledge, but Light, realizing that, immediately jumped up and got out of the scenario, which is a good awareness of Light. It's probably his best thing in this set, his awareness. Like right here, right? He does this little scrap. Akala's trying to catch a jump out of shield. And then instead of doing a grab or anything like that, he does down tilt because he knows that the up smash is only designed to hit you if you're in the lava already. So he releases shield, does the down tilt, gets more damage than he could have, and that was really smart. So this right here, sorry for pausing so often, but there's like a lot of initial things that I think are important, and then they'll happen again and again throughout the set. So you will see Acola in most scenarios where he does not want to be in disadvantage anymore. He will reset with the block, or he will reset by going over here, and then he will toss out Minecart. And Minecart, knowing how to deal with Minecart is very essential. And depending on how often you've played Steve, it can be pretty problematic. Like Fox is pretty good at dealing with the minecart, given the reflector is essentially like a catch-all, where it's like if you really don't want to be in the scenario and the minecart is there, you reflect it. Even if Steve is in the minecart, then you reflect it, he just goes the other way, which is really nice. You can also break the minecart. It has 8.4 health and a knockback armor of 60. So essentially, if Light's around, or if Acola's around 40 or 50% and he's still in the minecart, that's essentially going to break it, right? I've seen later in the set, I'm pretty sure the minecart gets broken by Light Nair, so by Fox. So that's really all that's necessary. It is also frame 20, which is just with the input delay, just barely reactable. And so if you really just don't want to mess with the minecart, you can stand in this region or jump in this region, and as soon as you react it, you double jump shine, and then it immediately throws it away, right? And then you're not dealing with it anymore. Light was trying to go for a tempo break. A big thing in Fox's neutral is setting a tempo and then breaking it, because a lot of guessing goes to the other player because Fox is so fast. That's why Light didn't fast fall that Nair. He was trying to throw off the tempo, but Acola was ready for it. That's our guy. Right there, that setup right there, it's pretty common from Steve's. Let's go back to it real fast, right? Right, he sets that block right there, which is really nice. And then he throws out the minecart, and essentially what that block does is it essentially stops how far you can roll. A pretty good option for a lot of characters when the minecart comes and Steve is still in it is they shield it and then they immediately roll in, and that block essentially stops how far you can go, and it can like essentially allow Steve to come in and start more pressure, right? And then he immediately throws out this anvil to dissuade any coming in from Light. Right. Yep, getting Acola to swing again, right? Getting around Acola, trying to get him to throw out aerials, and he eventually gets it. But the main problem, and this comes up a lot in the set, and I'll point it out when it happens. There are a lot of holes that Light tries to punish that he's just not fast enough, or they're really not holes. A big one is that Steve, Fair, and Bear both auto-cancel. They're really good at auto-canceling, and there will be a lot of scenarios where Light will run in expecting there to be landing lag, and then there's not, or expecting him to be able to get underneath the Bear to Steve, and it's just not there in time. And that's what happened here. I could have maybe seen the up tilt, if he did a turnaround up tilt, maybe it would have been faster, because up tilt does start behind Fox. But that's a big thing that happens in this set, and I'll point it out when it happens. And now he's in a shield mix-up, which is just really awful, right? Yep, and that's a shield break setup for Anvil. It's really unfortunate the way that it works out. Right, he hits you with it once, and then if you get hit, if you shield both the falling hitbox and the grounded hitbox, then you're essentially get your shield broken. The main mix-up here, or the main way you avoid this, is the thud of the anvil is a grounded hitbox. And essentially what that means is that for it to hit you, you have to be on the ground. Another example of one of these is the key, like thud from Game & Watch, when he does the key on the floor. And what you do is, if you take the first hit on your shield, and you immediately jump, you will not get hit by the grounded hit. no matter where you are, as long as you're in the air. So you can do that. You can also parry the second hit, and I believe the game treats it like a projectile, in the sense that you get a shortened parry time, and so you can get out of there, shield not broken. But again, that's just an example of like a really bad shield mix-up that Steve has on your shield, and it all occurred from Light just missing the whiff punish. So now Acola has to lead, and he's getting resources, and blah, blah, blah. It's just not great. Now he has diamond and gold, which is just really problematic. You've seen this before, I'm sure, if you've watched Steve or if you've watched Acola. He will, when you have invincibility, he will place this wall here to essentially give him some insurance. If you get hit into it, he can tech it, or at the very least, if it's untechable, the knockback will be reduced. Nice bait from Light. Him realizing that he's played in shield twice now, right? He does this. Acola going in for the grab. This is about to set up for jab loops. Light being aware of this, jumps through, gets the punish. That's just really good advantage take by Light. Yeah, this is really unfortunate. This is like another one of those things, like the dash attack, where you just have to know. Like in this case, with Outrage, Steve dies to Nair up smash at 95, 96, and he got hit by it at around 93, which is really unfortunate that he was just 2% late. It's really unfortunate, but it is one of those things that it was just barely off. And that's why knowing your kill percents as Fox is so crucial. Just a quick note here, because a lot of people don't know this. If you're not in front of the minecart, then it has a hitbox. The only place where it grabs you is if you're in front of it. Everywhere else it has a hitbox. Right? And then Acola just swatting. This is just really good advantage state by Steve. It's just the way that it goes. Right? And there's that back air again. He does that back air a second time. He did this in the first stock as well, where like double jumps to try and get back to stage, thinking that Steve can't cover it, and then because Fox just isn't fast enough in the air, and Acola goes, all right, you're going back to center, and then he swats you. Because having center stage is pretty important for Fox. Great awareness by Light. This is such a great awareness. Like I said before, Light's best feature in this set is his awareness of what's going on, right? He throws out this up smash, trying to catch another jump out of shield, trying to catch Light, maybe trying to punish the back air on the shield, right? And it might have killed. It would have gotten close because of Rage and how Light Fox is. But Light recognizes this, turns around, which is really awesome, and then he charges the up smash. He charges it to ensure that it will kill. Acola DIs into the blocks to try and stop that. He gets an untechable, and the charge still ends up getting him the kill. Super smart by Light. I think the way that he plays around Steve up smash is super awesome, and it's not something I see a whole lot. Just to mention it, there has been this counterplay that people have been trying to do where Steve will create a tool on the crafting table with invincibility, and then characters will run into him to push him away from the crafting table, and that will stop him from crafting a new tool. But the problem is, Steves have realized this, and then what they'll do is they will buffer an up tilt out of it, so that way as soon as they're pushed off of the crafting table, you'll get hit by an up tilt, which is really not good. And so I understand, like, just like letting him do this. Essentially, every time Steve gets spawn invincibility, he immediately drops, he gets a new tool, and he built a wall. That's just the way that it is in this matchup. Getting Steve to swing again, and then Light getting advantage off of it, super good advantage, keeping him aware. This right here, I think he gets punished for it later in the set, but there's a big thing about knowing when the advantage is over. Right, he gets this, and if he would have put an initial dash on this jump, I feel like the fair maybe would have caught him possibly. But like he missed it, and it seemed like the advantage was over. And if he were any closer, he would have got swatted out of the air by Acola's forward air. So just like knowing when it's over is pretty nice. Notice how Acola has to double jump. He's not super playing on the floor, and I think that's something that if Acola were to play Light again, I think that would change. Whenever he wants to swat Light out of the air, he's doing double jump there, which is kind of risky just given that when he does that, he doesn't have his second jump. Granted, he can place a block and get his double jump back, but the point still stands. Like getting the grab, Acola getting nervous over here. A lot of people, their default scared option is to shield, and Light knows this, and so he goes in and he grabs. Especially common against Fox, because everyone says, oh, you just shield against Fox, which, like, yes, but also no, because now Light's starting to shield poke, so things are getting more problematic for us shielders out there. Why did he throw this fair? I think he wanted to catch him coming in here. I think he didn't expect the Electra. I feel like a Nair probably would have been better. But I think Light was trying to make a play here. I think he wanted this drag down and start a little drag down combo. But I understand the thought process here. And then, oh my gosh, he almost died. He almost died at 80 from this. Right, yeah. And this is something that you have to be wary of. As soon as you're in Anvil kill percent, you have to be wary of Nair on shield whenever Acola is shielding on the floor, or whenever it looks like he can shield on the floor, just because it's essentially an unstoppable. Right, it's frame 4. Right, it's really hard to deal with. Good DI by Light though. Acola setting the wall. See, this is an interesting interaction that I've been thinking about, and that I don't know how I feel about it, but I want to see it play out more. So what Light does here is he hops over here and is trying to initiate with Acola over here, right? And he misses the. I think he wanted to land right on the ledge, or like right here instead of landing on the ledge itself. And I think Acola just kind of scared him with that forward smash. But it's interesting because typically when you're fighting against a character and you're in the corner, that's bad for you because your opponent has access to dash back and you don't. And dash back is a really nice non-committal option to disengage from a situation that you don't like. But when Steve places the wall, he doesn't have dash back either. So it essentially forces a scrap. And if you're comfortable in the scrap, then I think it could be beneficial for you. I still think that Steve has the slight advantage because he has the wall, and if you ever hit him towards the wall, then he can tech it, and things can get problematic for you. But I think it's an interesting scenario that if you really don't want to play this like full hot mix-up, or if you really don't want to deal with the blocks, then that could be something to try. Another scenario to engage with. Same bait as before. He shields, Acola throws out that pivot grab and like full hops over. I believe he's reacting to that pivot grab because Steve grab, I believe, is frame 14 or 15, and just like reacting, and especially with the pivot grab, it's probably around frame 20, and so just like full hopping over it. Just a slurry of hitboxes. Yep, just a slurry of hitboxes here. So let's analyze this real fast. So he gets that. He tries to. So this is. It's really funny what this interaction represents because Light hits Acola against this block wall with a pretty telegraphed nair, and then thinks that Acola won't tech it, and then he goes for this forward smash. And then Acola techs it and thinks that Light will try to punish him for teching it, and so he throws out the anvil. And then Acola recognizes this. He goes, oh, Light's in the corner. He's not going to expect this. He throws out the minecart. Light rolls out of it, but Steve electros back to center. And then Acola throws out a second one, and then hits him with the back air as Light is trying to maneuver around it. Yep, and yeah, just catching that full hop out of shield. That's something that Acola does in this set a lot. He does it in a few scenarios. He'll like find a scenario where he thinks that you don't think he'll throw out minecart. A very common one is after a first minecart, he'll throw out a second one. And then that's how he catches you, which I think is really neat. The way that he does it. Though he chooses minecarts, he goes, no one will expect this second minecart. And a lot of people don't. So that's the wall. So this tech against the wall, Light's always prepared to combo off the blocks. You'll notice in this set. And I think that forward tilt is a lot better than that nair, because that nair was telegraphed. Even if it's fast, it's pretty telegraphed. But that forward tilt is not, because it's quick. And it's not something that he's used before, and it's not considered like a combo tool for Fox. And also, there's not a lot of hits done, so it's really hard for Acola to react to getting hit by that. And so going in for that combo was super smart on Light's part. Just great awareness. Situational awareness, great advantage state. Yep, there's that minecart again. See, he's so good at that awareness. There's that minecart, like I mentioned before, Acola loves doing that minecart. And Light just barely out of position. If he would have done up air here, I think it would have killed. And I think that would have been the clip of the tournament, or one of. Yeah, that's something that Acola will do in this set a lot. He will fish for parries at 0. And Steve jab is frame 4. And so when you parry something, you get 3 frames of advantage, and you don't have to release your shield. So you get all of your grounded options, or whatever, after you parry. You get 3 frames of advantage. And Steve jab being frame 4 essentially means that if he parries you, unless you have a hitbox the next frame, the jab is guaranteed. Which at 0 is not good for Light. So throughout this set, he will be fishing for those. And Light gives them a lot, He does throw out a few dares on shield, but at 0 it's not super helpful. And he does this more against other characters, I feel like. But going for the fair mix-up, going for like a parry mix-up with the fair at these lower percents, or when Steve is at a lower percent, is good for popping them up. In these higher percents, the dare is probably better. Because it combos into up smash, although there are certain fair hits that also combo into kill moves. But that's just something that Acola is looking for a lot of the time. Light SDIing to get out of it ends up working out pretty well. Great tech chase. How do you get that in there? Right, he just caught Acola trying to get out of there. Probably more than likely reacted to that air dodge after the full hop and then went, oh, here I come, and then got him. And a great tech chase. Typical Fox stuff. I think the way that Light played with this invincibility is interesting. Because notice how he like hops over to this side, and Steve is slightly closer to this side than that side. So if he wanted to build a wall with invincibility, probably would have done it over here. But that's why Light goes over here. I think that's a really interesting way to deal with the invincibility. Light does this full hop fair a lot, and against a lot of characters it's good because it catches their full hop, and fair scoops pretty low. But the problem introduced itself specifically with Steve, because if he wants to be up here, Steve has to double jump. And I don't know if Acola is going to be going for double jump bear at around these percents. I feel like it's not super practical, especially just like raw, like off the out of the gate. So I feel like these in neutral are less likely to hit. Maybe he's doing it for positioning. Maybe he wants to get like back in the center. But I think that these fairs in this matchup aren't super great. Yeah. And then Steve does go up here to swat afterwards. But like initially, I don't feel like he'll go up there. It's like just missing a combo and then having to play the shield mix-up and losing it just because it's such a great mix-up for Steve. Getting aggressive from the ledge. Yeah, whenever Acola is in disadvantage, he uses 1 or 2, iron. So I think right here, I think Light like chills over here in this region, but I think if he paid attention to, or maybe, I'm not to say that he didn't notice it, right? But right now, Acola is low on resources, specifically iron, and typically he wants to have, like, at this percent, he wants to have 2 or 3, because A, he needs it for disadvantage, and he's slowly but surely encroaching on the time frame at which footstool dare out of shield kills. And so I think at this point, it can be a little more telegraphed than normal, or Light can make the assumption that he wants this and dash forward, and like continue to dash forward. Because I think at this point, Acola wants to build a wall, and that's what he does, right? But Light goes for another fair. Again, getting Acola to swat, like he needs to be doing. Just not getting the whiff punish. Light going for another full hop fair. I'm wondering if he's trying to get Acola to swat at him and just knowing that he won't get there in time. Because that is what happened there. Acola did do the double jump bear. So maybe that is what his goal is, right? Light's a top player, not me. But I think, yeah. So that's how he got that. And Acola was just a little late on the draw. Right, trying to play the shield mix up. Light's just an advantage with the sharking, right? And now, see right there, it doesn't happen too often in the set, but you can break the minecart, and it's something that you need to be willing to do. Because if you don't, playing that mix-up in a defensive manner 9 times out of 10 is just not super practical. I mean, if you have a reflector, you can do that. But yep. So this time, Acola, knowing that he needs the resources, he was ironless, and so he does not swat at Light this time. He's like, I'm not playing you until I get my resources. And then Light, not super comfortable with breaking the wall here. Yeah, that's that out of shield game from Steve. The jab out of shield is frame 7, and so it can be pretty tricky to hit Steve. A big thing that does not happen in the set that I feel like is not really known about is that if Fox does fair on Steve's shield, it is not grabbable, and it does not get caught by jab out of shield. So the ways that you punish it is you have to do dare out of shield, or you have to do up smash. And around these percents, Akala's not really thinking about it. I don't think he does up smash out of shield, aside from that one time where Light punished him on the blocks. But that's a way to do it. So at lower percents and at these mid percents, if you want to hit Steve's shield with something that won't lead to you like getting sent off stage or something like that, I'm doing fair on the shield, especially because it includes parry mix-ups. I think that could be a good way or a good counterplay to Steve. Oof, what happened here? All right, so Steve leaves this block here. Light nairs his shield again. It's something you just have to be conscious of these higher percents. And then I believe right here, this is like where Light gets hit. He gets hit on his top of his little head. But like this spark right here either indicated a roll or an up smash. I assume it was a roll. And he just didn't get out in time. So yeah. I think a big thing was that Light wasn't getting the hits that he needed. He was getting like these weird hits, or like he was trying to hit Acola in places that he wasn't going to be in. He lost a lot of the scraps, and he wasn't getting like a lot of whiff punishes. Right, like there were a lot of times where he was getting Acola to swing, and he just wasn't able to capitalize on it super well. And even when he won neutral, he hit Acola in certain places where there wasn't like a true combo, or things like that. And also, he died really early. Basically every stock. Like he died to a shield break, and then he died to a bear at like 100, which isn't super early. But then that stock he died at what? Yeah, he died at 72, right? I think he was just dying really early, and I think being more conscious of the things that kill you early, and that's what he's good at. That's what has made him so much more consistent as of now. Because like if you watched him pre-COVID, he would get like gimped super duper early. But now he's pretty consistently like living because he knows how to manage that risk reward. And I think just like not being super cognizant of the dare out of shield and the things that will kill him early is what kind of got him in this game. Which, like, to be fair, when was the last time he played? You know, he played Yanni, but like he really doesn't play with a high level Steve that is like daring, footstool daring him every time he nairs someone's shield, right? Back to PS2. This makes sense. See, Light initiating immediately, trying to get that neutral win, trying to stay ahead of the game. This was a very lucky fall. He jumped over the minecart. That's crazy. Right? And then Light just missing a grab. I think he thought Acola was going to be in front of him. Right? And also that bear auto-canceled, so and he would have spot dodged it as well. Good SDI by Light. This time he SDI'd up and this way, like up into the other direction that Acola was going, and it got him out of the combo earlier. Yeah, just doing a little bit of timing mix-up, just like barely changing the time at which he hits Light or Acola. I think this. I think that fair was designed to catch a dash forward, but Acola was ready for it and got the parry. Good SDI from Light, just getting out of there. Yeah, again, this is it, right. It's like Light goes in for the punish, goes in for the whiff punish. That bear auto cancels. He's too late, and then Acola just missed the punish there. Acola just being barely outside of the range of Light at any given time. Great spacing by Light. Just like barely being outside of where Acola needs to hit him. And then that dare, even if Acola didn't release his shield, it would have poked. So that was a really good dare. Just being aware of how much shield Acola has left. Light was prepared for that anvil. There was just a platform in the way. He was prepared for it. He tried. And then he just got caught by the, yeah. Yeah, Acola just missed like 2 or 3 combo starters there, which is really unfortunate. Oh, this is great. This is a great mix-up. This fair was on accident. Not in the sense that the fair itself was on accident, but in the sense that he meant to do this fair slightly later so we could do a second drag down. And that probably would have ended in the stock, to be completely honest with you. So Light's just been on top of Acola this entire time, getting him to swat at not Light, right? And he hasn't been able to mine too many resources. Like, he only has 1 iron left, and then just catching a jump in the middle. That jump might have killed him, because I can't tell if Acola is in tumble, because it's really hard to tell if Steve is in tumble or not. But I I think that jump might have killed him, because if he was in tumble, he definitely could have at least caused like a tech chase, but because he was in the air, he was not close enough to the ground to tech. So that made that combo true. The big thing about hitting nair up smash is trying to get people jumping, because if they jump into it, then the nair up smash connects for longer, because they're just like not on the floor to tech it. What stops it from being a combo is the fact that they can tech. Yep. Gets tool, sets wall. This time, like remembering Acola didn't swing, now Light goes, all right, let's play now, and then does not hesitate. Right, just barely another one of those not knowing when the combo was over. Like thought he could get in there to punish, just barely too late. And Acola starting a little combo of his own. Oh, this sucks. This sucks. So for those who don't know, Fox's ECB, or that's what it's called in Melee. It's essentially the thing that tells the game like where you are, and like tells you what when you collide with the floor or not. Is on Fox Nair is on his butt, and right there his legs hit the stage, not his butt. If his butt hit the stage, then he would have landed, but because it didn't, he just fell through the ledge. Yeah, just catching Acola being aggressive. There's that minecart again. Light finding a way to deal with it. Comboing off the block, his awareness is insane. Light is crazy. There's a reason he is top 5 in this game. Oh my gosh. Right? That's another common thing that Acola will do. He doesn't want to use minecart immediately. He'll stop with a block. Right? This sequence was fantastic. And what's even better is that I don't think Light wanted to cover this, but I think the way that he chose his options was like so impeccable that it covered it anyway. So play by play, right? Okay. So Light sets the block, or Acola sets the block. Light's down. Light comes up to catch Acola from dropping from the platform. Does so with a full hop there and lands back on stage. I think what Light wanted Acola to do was he wanted Acola to drift in here, like drift diagonally into the stage, and then Light falls to the platform, nairs, up smashes. Acola does not do this. Acola jumps and minecarts, but Fox up smash is so huge that it hits Acola anyway, right? Light choosing an option that both covers what he wanted, what he thought Acola was going to do, and also covered the minecart is fantastic. I think, personally, I thought a big thing about Steve and learning how to keep him in disadvantage and learning how to kill him is learning how to pick options that cover something and then also cover the minecart. And I think Light exemplified that perfectly. So at this point, Akala's just been stressed the entire time. Doesn't even have gold. He doesn't have gold yet, right? Right. Akala's swinging. He's swinging invincibly. Right here, the one time where Acola does not have an auto cancel, he gets punished for it. Right, just getting clipped for trying to swing. Minecart and Anvil. He has one iron. Look at that down tilt. That was a really good down tilt. Yeah. Caught him before he could auto cancel it, right? That down tilt, he was essentially like this with Steve, and then this is the hitbox, so that's why that down tilt worked. Catching Acola running off the platform. Acola just swinging with the back airs, trying to get Light off of him. Just cannot do it. Light does that full hop, pulls out the spot dodge, gets another combo. I think that full hop fair. I think that fair should have been full hop. This right here is fantastic. Okay, so he goes in for a dare. Acola parries it, right? Then Light fades the dare back in to get the final hit on Acola to prevent a punish. Fantastic drift. Light's awareness, his reactions, insane. Snare. I think Acola was a bit slow in the draw there. I think if he really wanted to, he probably could have schooled out a shield. Place the block. There's the minecart, tries to get something going. Right here, fantastic positioning by Light. Threads the needle, that ECB we were talking about. Puts his puts his butt through the crack, and he Acola, no longer having to deal with the wall. Right here, it's been talked about a few times, but if you've never seen it before, if there's a bottom block broken, you can run through the wall. And so Light runs through knowing this, tries to hit him with a down tilt. Acola also knows this, preps back with a minecart. Light, that might have been him trying to break it, honestly. He just like missed the name. And then I think right here, Light was trying to catch Acola like dashing in or something like that. Or maybe a Nair to throw off the timing. I guess that's what this Nair is so good for. It covers a lot of stuff. And then just flips the forward smash. So, yeah, Acola did not get gold that entire time. Didn't get diamond. He was just like stuck in disadvantage the entire time. Light was just on his ass the entire time. Right? But he was never like initiating super hard. He was always like being pretty close to Acola to try and get him to swing. And most of the time he did. But like never too close to where if he like messed up, he had to shield to get out of the scenario. It's like really good positional awareness, right? Found more holes in Steve gameplay, right? Game one, I was talking about how he just didn't know where he was swinging in places where he didn't know where to swing and he wasn't maximizing his damage. This game, he swung where he needed to, and he got Acola to try and swing first, and then hit him for it, and then also his advantage state was crazy. So it makes sense that it changed so much. So I believe that Acola takes him to town next, and I think it makes sense, right? See the bands here. Yeah, these bands make sense. Not wanting to scrap with the Uniplat. I also think Fox is bad on Uniplats. Not wanting to give Steve FD because Steve FD blocks. Bleh. And then I know that Light just doesn't like Yoshi. He doesn't like the slants or the fact that he can't auto-cancel on the platform. I think personally I would be too upset with taking Steve to Yoshi's, but it makes sense in the context of what Light likes. What Light likes. So he takes him to town because he wants the space, and the blast-ins are pretty good for what Steve wants, especially if he's coming off the side. There's that fair again. Trying to initiate, trying to get the lead. Unfortunate. This combo is true. He just hit the Nair a little too early. Or I think it was soft Nair, so that's why it didn't really work out. But good awareness. Acola immediately going into the minecart, right? I think he was in the minecart for both of those hits, so that's why they were both like hits instead of grabs. So Light's immediately out of the place. I think this is the second time where Light has done this full hop dare as a mix-up, and it's hit Steve. I like it for a few reasons. First, Acola has not been up tilting in neutral a whole lot, so going for it is nice. And if Akala's been throwing out a few jabs, because jab is also like a really good tool for Steve, but the thing about it is that that dare, it'll essentially hit like the back of Steve's head, or like just like his head, and his sword is like over in the visceral region, right? And so he will go over the sword. There's a part of the sword that hits like right around here, so there's a part of the sword that might clip Fox, but like if you aim the dare correctly, it'll hit his little head, and that's a lot better. And that's why I like that. And also, Acola hasn't been really ready for it. Like this is the second or third time Akala's been hit by it. So, great combo. Acola using the TNT to get down, which is interesting. I think he should do this more often. I think a lot of the time he uses handle, and I think using the TNT. He's really not using it for ledge traps or things like that. Yeah, they're both playing around the TNT, which is weird. Like, Light's like, I will not get hit by anything with the TNT. Just nothing with it. And Acola says, all right, if you come down here, here's this minecart. Have fun with the TNT. So this is great on both players. Sets this wall, and then goes down here, essentially forms a house effect. It limits the timings at which Light can come down with an aerial. I don't think Light. I think Light was expecting Acola not to be ready for an aerial to the platform, and then Acola just was. Also, to comment on it, Light did laser a bit right around there, and I think lasers in this matchup can be good, but the problem is that if you commit to lasers, if he has gold, the minecart comes in really quickly, and B, if he doesn't have it, or if he doesn't want to throw it, he sees the lasers, he immediately reacts, and he sets a wall. And walls are not good. And typically you're doing lasers like over here, and like if he set this wall, he set this wall 3 high. Honestly, he might have been able to set a 4 high if he really wanted to, or like create like a little roof over here. So I think there are points at which they are good, specifically if you know that the Steve is not committing to one of those two options. But for the most part, they can be pretty unconducive just because Steve can do things that are bad for you without approaching. Yeah. Acola trying to catch Light running off the platform, missing, and then Light just barely not getting the bear out in time, which is really unfortunate. If you see here, right, he tries to clip Acola with this bear. He just fast fall too fast. Great awareness of the blocks. Oh my gosh, Light's a top player. Right here. Okay. So I mentioned it before. Acola will find places where he doesn't think where he thinks that you won't expect a minecart, and then throws it out. Right here. He lands on the block. He misses the tech. I think he probably missed the tech on purpose. Or even if he didn't, it really didn't matter. But then he lands on the block. He knows that the block is about to disappear, and then it cancels the tech lag, and then he immediately throws out a minecart. Again, you got to be wary of those nairs. He thought there might have been a bit of a lag to capitalize off of. He just didn't think that Acola was going to be shielding. He got that footstool dare to shield. At these later percents, he hasn't really been hitting Acola with dare mix-ups at later percents, and that is something he did to Yanni a lot. Yanni would get parries, and then it would be in the middle of a dare, so it didn't matter. And I think at these later percents, throwing out a dare as a mix-up might be a little bit better, specifically if you land behind him. Because if you land behind Steve with that dare, granted, it's a little harder to combo up smash into it at that point. But if you land behind him, he has to do like jab out of shield, right? Unless he like reacts to the dare itself, right? If he reacts to the dare, then you still get dared out of shield. But like I think at this point, Acola is pretty comfortable with the nair timing. I think that the parry mix up and I think that the timing mix up would be pretty helpful for Light. So down to stock. He's got materials. I forgot to mention this stage gives Acola wood, which is interesting. I think he also mines a bit faster on this stage, so that's probably why he did it. You know, giving up the iron for the faster mining, just so that way he gets more resources. Light comboing off the blocks because he is epic. And Acola minecarting out of disadvantage. Tried to get there in time, just was not there in time. Tried to get there in time with the fair, just was not there. Calling out Light's panic shield, that's the second or third time he's done it. Although Light has been punishing him for it, I just think that Light was scared after the fair. SDI to get away, great SDI, it's what you gotta do. Great parry, again, from like 0 to 40, Acola's fishing for these parries. I think that Light in this set in general just didn't go for a lot of like parry mix-ups or like multi-hit mix-ups. And I think knowing that the fair puts him in a pretty good spot may have encouraged him to do it more later on. I think that might be one of the key differences. If Light were to have played Acola at SmashCon, I think that would have been one of the two differences. I think the other difference is that he would have been a lot better with dealing with minecart, but I think that's a big one. I think going for more multi-hit mix-ups on shield. This is unfortunate. You saw there, I believe Light wanted to air dodge onto the platform, and he just missed, and then Acola put down the blocks, and that's just really tough to come back from. He did get stuffed by the block here. It looked like he just got trapped on the stage, but he did get stuffed by the block. I think your only solution here is to like move slightly to the right and then get an angle so that way you don't get stuck. Like you break this block and then you hopefully break this block and then you snag here. But also it's like he wasn't able to start the Firefox that close up, so it was probably the weaker hit of Firefox, which is why that block didn't break. It's an unfortunate SD. Just a tempo mix-up. Just like it's one of the things you could do with invincibility. You could run up smash and it's like, oh, okay. Well, if you miss, it's your invincibility. But this is rough. Light's down by an entire stock. Light trying to catch Acola on the platform, on the blocks, just like not fast enough. Acola already swinging. So far, whenever Light has done this full hop fair, he's done a double jump to escape, and I think Acola has realized that, and that's why he was swinging up here with the up tilts. I mentioned this before. Fox's big tool in Fox's neutral is setting a tempo and breaking it. Watch this. Light hops on the block and then waits for a split second and then runs off. So good. Throws off Acola's timing and he gets the punish. Right. Barely missing the fair. Great nair. Yeah, so the minecart has hitbox or has knockback armor. I believe because the nair was stale, it didn't break. Because I think the nair was like 2 or 3 stale at this point. scrapping and hitting each other's shield, and then you can combo them. Also, quick comment on this. I think something that would be worth looking up is if you reflect something, if it gets. I think if you have the hitbox of the reflector, then it gets added to the scale queue. But if you reflect something, it does not. So in this case, if you wanted to deal with minecart, you probably would have had to use a different move or just like space around it. Or probably move over here and reflect that minecart and go for Acola in a different way. Right. Acola going for the same combo starter 3 times. Like hitting a shield, trying to do the jab at a shield. Just not comboing until now. One jab off from that forward smash. I think if you did that forward smash, like right here, then you would have got the combo. Just throwing out a lot of lightless stuff. Acola getting the kill. I think right around here, there's that. Finally, you get throws off the parry inside, which is really nice. Yeah. Acola, something Acola does is he tries to use a spot dodge as essentially a makeshift parry. Like he tries to like do that spot dodge to like essentially set himself up for a parry, or set himself up for something like as soon as they hit the floor, he can start his jabs. Like calling it the spot dodge. I think that's the second or third time he's done it. And around this time, Akala's getting nervous, like he really wants that kill, and you can tell by the way that he's throwing out back airs and things like that. There's Light calling out that spot dodge again. He does that call out pretty often. Light having to play the mix up here, just immediately runs in. Like, makes it look like he's about to hit these blocks and then goes over them. Yeah. Minecart's especially hard to deal with when you're like right next to the wall. In this case, I would probably just reflect it. And then something about Fox's reflector that Light abuses, that a lot of Foxes abuse, but a lot of Foxes don't realize, is that every time you reflect something, anything you could do out of shield, you can do out of the reflector. So if you, essentially, when you start the reflector, you want to press down B, and then you want to release down and just hold B. Because if you just hold down B, then you reflect something and you immediately spot dodge. But if you do that, just hold B, and then you can roll, spot dodge, up smash, up B, or jump. So you have a lot of options there. Acola trying to clip him with this bear. He does this setup a lot. You know, it seems to do this setup a lot where they like bonk on this block and throw the minecart and then immediately turn around and put that bear. Another minecart. Right. I'm very surprised that Acola did not dare this other shield. And you could I think you can tell that Akala's getting nervous because I think this block formation was a mistake. I think he wanted to do 2 blocks here, or maybe 2 blocks here, but I think this block formation is not what he wanted, and you can tell that he's getting nervous. He really wants this kill. Takes a little break, takes a little breather, gets more resources, because he literally had nothing. Again, I think that Light realizing when Acola has no resources and when he's more prone to, because that's essentially a tell for when he's going to swing preemptively or not. If he has some resources to swing with, he'll swing. If he doesn't, then he'll just stay there and get the resources. And so I think that's the second time where like he's had no resources, Light's tried to get him to swing and he just didn't. Yep. Acola trying to sneak in that bear. Great whiff punish. Right. I don't understand. I'm not entirely sure why Acola didn't throw out shield right there, because it did look like that bear auto-canceled. But good on Light for coming in. Again, I think it's because Akala's nervous. He sets the diamond. Yep, see, immediately goes for that kill setup, right? Like, no conditioning or anything. Throws out the minecart, does the PBR there. And then Light just goes in and stops the bear. This has happened a few times where that bear has just barely not been fast enough. Like going for a combo. Immediately throwing out the minecart. So this is a really good up smash by Acola. And the reason it's good is because of the way that Light's been playing around blocks this entire time. And the options that Fox has. So first, if you've noticed, Light has never tried to break the blocks. There was like one time where he like nared the blocks and then ran back lasered or something along those lines. But like 9 times out of 10, Light typically likes to move around the blocks rather than breaking them. So then Acola goes, okay, there's that block right there. I'm going to mine because I can do that, and I'm going to try and get Light to come at me. He sees Light running in. He goes, okay, I know that Light has not tried to break blocks in a really long time, or Rarely, right? So he goes, I'm going to react to a jump here. As soon as I see him jump, I'm dashing him with this up smash. Because essentially, if he does any full hop mix up, that is not double jump immediately. Like, not even like do the full hop, fall down a little bit, double jump. Any mix up that's not full hop, double jump immediately, or fall back. He gets hit by this up smash. So knowing the tools that Fox has and the way that Light has been using them, he used that as information to do this up smash, and I think he was super smart. And I think that if he did not, I think that while Acola was nervous, the fact that he still had the awareness to make such a smart play is really, really good on him, and tells to like how even if you are nervous, you can still have some like miniature parts of composure. Right? That SD sucked. That SD sucked. I think a big thing was that Light just wasn't hitting a lot of these like whiff punches like before, right? He was getting clipped by these auto cancel things, and again he wasn't keeping track of the footstool there, or Steve's resources. Um, I think again his advantage state was really good, and that SD was really unfortunate. I think if that SD didn't occur, I think we probably would have seen a game five. I think Light would have had this set or had this game and we would have seen game five. But just that SD and not capitalizing on certain portions and letting there. It's very evident that Light is not familiar with certain um, options in this set. Of course, I'm sure he's seen this and has gone back and has prepared more answers for things. But a big thing is that he doesn't seem like he's super great at dealing with the minecart or reflecting it. Sometimes you just have to like take it as it goes and reflect it and move on with your life, right? At least you're not playing the mix up. Um, but I think those are the big reasons why Light is faltering. I also think that Acola's combos in this game were really good. He was like really like centralizing on the finding the jabs. And I think if Light were more aware of like, all right, he's getting the jabs specifically through these out of shield options and through these parries, I think he could um, find more ways to get around them. Right, landing behind Steve, using more multi-hit mix-ups, things like that. Okay. And then they go back to PS2, right? Because Acola bans Yoshi's, right? Yeah, I think this makes sense. I think that Light should maybe be more comfortable with fighting Steve on Yoshi's because Yoshi's only lets Steve mine wool, which is the equivalent of dirt. He mines pretty quickly, but he only gets dirt. And so it essentially removes a lot of block mix-ups because Fox isn't great at breaking wooden or stone or iron. Like, that's also really not great. But he is pretty good at breaking dirt. If you do a specific back air on that 3 high block wall, it breaks all 3 blocks. And even then, if you do a nair on the first 2, it breaks those 2. So I think being there, and also the platform heights are pretty conducive to Light if you wanted a platform camp. But he goes back to PS2, and I think that's fine. I would also like to see him try it on small battlefield because like Acola wanted more space, and so trying to give him less space, see how that would work out. But I know Light's really comfortable and really likes PS2, so if he's comfortable with it, then I think it's fine. There's that fair again. He does it all 4 times, or he jumps like all 4 times. Yep. There's that parry again. He's getting these more parry mix-ups. And this game 4, Acola starts anti-airing with up tilt, and I think this is huge. I've mentioned this before, but he wasn't playing super grounded. He was like doing these double jump bears to try and swat Light out of the air, and he was like barely too late. But now he's swatting him out of the air with these like short hop up tilts or up airs, and it's really, really good. Where do you go for this? Right? Yeah, just thinking that there was going to be a gap. I think he thought Acola was going to throw out that bear, but Acola realizing that he was probably not going to hit that bear, he immediately shielded and got Light for swinging too early. So this is rough because Steve has the lead. There's that dare again, worked out really well. Um, Catching Steve's spot dodge. Yep, uses the TNT to get down. Really smart. Just holding center. So TNT takes a while to explode. I believe it's like somewhere between 8 and 10 seconds. So we can count them, right? So like 34 and then about 6 seconds. Okay, about 6 seconds. And so realizing that it's not going to explode, and the only way you make it explode is by hitting it with fire. And unless you're firefoxing into that TNT, you really not do it. But knowing that makes you more you don't have to worry about TNT for like the first 3 or 4 seconds, especially if there's no pressure plate. And so playing around it, essentially what Acola does is he's more comfortable playing around the TNT than Light is. Granted, that makes sense just because Acola is the Steve name. But because of that, he lets Acola get stage, and that's why he's able to build this wall. Again, threads the needle perfectly. Great nair, gets Acola. But yeah, I think that's the crux of that scenario. Like disengaging. I like the way that he disengages. I think there's a few times in the earlier games where he would like disengage by shielding, and he did it a little bit game 3 as well. But just like knowing when he needs to disengage, just dashing back, and knowing how hard that is for Steve to cover, I think that's why dashing back is really good, and I think that's why stage control is really crucial in this matchup. So this is another thing, right? So before, if you remember, Light would run up while Steve was like doing something, and then Acola would throw out a dash attack to dissuade him. And now he's doing minecart to do that, and that's a way better mix-up for Acola, right? He does this roll in, but now his shield is really low. That was really tough to get around, right? Because if he would have stayed in shield, he would have got a shield poke. Ooh, Acola was right here. Acola was right. I think it's the second or third time this has happened, but Acola was right here. That up smash was correct. He just mistimed it. Yeah, I think this is showcasing how much Acola wants that double jump minecart from ledge. Look at he's mashing the jump button. He wants that really badly, right? And I think Light being more apt to covering it might be helpful. This is a funny sequence. Acola just chasing him down. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I don't think Acola's ever really done that before, but I think it's a affectation of Acola trying to play more grounded. Right, I think that's a big difference between the sets, right? Yeah, right here. So it's divided into two things. First, I think I mentioned this before, but that's Light Nair breaking minecart. So being apt to breaking it is really nice. And then Acola doing that thing that he does where he finds scenarios where you're not expecting the second minecart. Great roll read, just didn't kill, like I said, yeah. And then this is good, just because I don't think Light's ever gone up there for a kill, so just like saving that, putting it in the back pocket, people aren't ready for it. Acola trying to get the jab. I partially wonder if Steve mains are like trying to get you to swing near the crafting table, so that way if you hit the crafting table, you're stuck in hit lag, so that way they have a longer time to punish you. Yeah. This is really good. Light's slowly adapting to like the run-up shield thing, or like the shielding when you're scared thing. He's like full hopping backwards, he's dashing back, doing things that are hard for Steve to capitalize on. And Acola's playing more grounded, and that's why I think that fair has less relevance than it did in the first two games. He hit this dare correctly, or like he hit this dare like he has been clipping Acola with, but he just messed it up. He just fast forwarded a little too early, or a little too late. But he's still in advantage state. And that's really neat because Electra functions as a makeshift minecart if you don't want to use it because it's faster and like it just it still clips them, but it doesn't. It's not got that minecart oomph. And then he throws up the second minecart. Anti-airing with up air. Really good. Mm-hmm. Oh, so right here, Acola does this block wall, and then he sees that this wall is about to break, and he thinks that Light's going to run in through it, and then he breaks them both. Just try and catch Light coming in. This is just Fox advantage state, Light being the top 5 player that he is. Yeah, like I was saying before, the on the shield, the multi-hit mix-up really helping out Light here. Oh, right here. Right here. He hits Acola's shield, and then he starts his own shield. And it's like, on one hand, what else can you really do in this scenario? But as soon as you hit his shield, I think the best play probably would have been to full hopper roll, something like that. But now he's stuck in shield. Right, yeah. you have to be content with immediately moving to avoid that shield mix-up. Because that shield mix-up is just not conducive to your goals as Fox. So he's getting the shield. He eventually full hops out, but now he's getting clipped by jabs. Good SDI. Acola just wants resources. Great Nair to break the minecart. I think he's slowly realizing how to deal with the minecart. Right. Now he's getting clipped by that. Acola not taking the bait like he has before. Light breaking the blocks for the first time. I think that's a great adaptation, trying to break the blocks. And good lord. Acola covering this back air and then Light dying for it. Right, the big win condition is not dying early as Fox. And you have to be wary of the things that are going to kill you early. I think for the most part, Light has been dying to he's been dying to like iron tools. He's been or iron like resources. He's been dying to minecart, or he's been dying to dare at a shield, if not PB bear. Or not, PB bear. PBR bear, excuse me. Sets up that wall, like trying to get the kill. Great throw. He knew the up smash wouldn't kill because he'd be stuck on the blocks. Another minecart, yeah. Now that he knows, that's the second time he's caught that drop down bear, right? That's the Light classic. I'm sure you've seen it before, but he will full hop over here, fake a trump. Everyone's initial reaction is to neutral get up, and he'll clip it with the bear. Right. So right now he needs to be extremely conscious of that jab. Right. He's he's been parried and he's just and before into that jab. And, the grab sets up into it, so he needs to be really conscious of it. This is the first time right here. This setup. Every time before Light has done this run up, Acola is spot dodged. Light just did it a little too early this time. He just a little bit of missed execution, probably a little bit of nerves, and then he almost dies for it. If you look in the player cam, Acola goes, no, right? He goes, no, and Light's like, really? Yeah. So getting stuck in these minecart scenarios, really not great. Yeah, Acola just fishing for that kill. He really wants it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you can tell when Acola is like ready for the game to end. He'll immediately start spamming this setup with the gold win card and the jump. And I think finding a solution to this setup in particular could help you live a lot longer. Acola playing on the ground. Interesting setup. Just did not work out in his favor. Him crossing up to avoid the anvil, really nice by Light. The balls of steel, I suppose. Look at this. Oh my gosh. He's like, I'm going to hit you. Yeah, I think they're both nervous. I think this is, again, Acola being nervous, being at such a young age. Right? Light trying to catch the air dodge out of here. Acola is out of gold minecart. So, something to keep in mind. Right, yeah, he's throwing out these forward smashes to try and catch Light dashing in. Right, because before, Light has been swinging in scenarios where Steve has done auto-cancel bears, and now he's trying to use that as a bait to get Light to swing in. Barely not dying from that back air. Oh my gosh. Good DI, though. Out of there. Acola setting up the wall. He wants a little more resources before he goes back in for the kill. Right? Light not wanting to play this mix-up. Again, Acola does this thing where he throws this minecart out as soon as the blocks are about to break, and then there's a minecart. I think he did it a little early. I think he wanted the minecart to shoot out, but still. And then finally, reacts to the jump again. Crazy reaction times. Crazy reaction times. Right? Again, he goes for that. He knows that Light has been swinging at the auto cancel bears, and because of that, uh, Steve goes in with that up smash, thinking that he's going to swing again, and he gets the jump and got the kill. Great reaction times from Acola, all things considered. I think that's really crazy how he's doing that. So overall, um, takeaways for Light. I think that his advantage state is really good when he gets going, right? He gets these really crazy combos. His awareness of the blocks, crazy. I've never seen someone be that aware of how the blocks are and using them to combo Steve. He's crazy at that type of awareness and the reactions to do that. Very clearly a top player who recognizes everything at every given time, right? And he was also focused on getting a lead, right? You notice at the beginning he immediately initiates. He goes, "All right, I need the lead," and I think that as soon as he gets that, I think he played with it pretty well. Like he was always good at staying near Steve, but like not super duper close. Especially that game too. He was in the zone for like the exact spot he needed to be. He also had some pretty good tempo switches, like I talked about before. He was good at like setting a tempo and then breaking it, right? And with those like whether he fast fall or not, he'd like run in and then he'd like stop himself with a full hop and catch a lot of Acola spot dodges, things like that. And when he did get hit, he had pretty good SDI, SDI, all things considered. Um, I think some cons. He played the shield mix-up a lot. I think games 3 and 4 he was more aware of it. Game 4 he got clipped by it once or twice. But game 1 was it was very evident that he got clipped by that shield mix-up where he was shielding and Acola was pressing buttons on his shield. It's really just not a mix-up you want to play as Fox. There were a lot of scenarios where it didn't seem like he knew where the holes were. In particular, it didn't seem like he was super acutely aware of where of where there was lag. Right, he would swing when the bear auto canceled. He would swing when the fair auto canceled. Things like that. He wasn't super comfortable with dealing with minecart, and I think that's the biggest thing that's going to change next time he plays Acola. I think he's going to know how to deal with the minecart more effectively because you can react to it, especially if you're a player of Light's caliber. Like noticing what he's reacting to in the game, I do believe he can react to minecart like as it pops up, especially because, especially in the gold variant, because of the fact that the red of the torch comes out. Right? So knowing when to jump, when to break it, when to reflect it, when to just disengage altogether, I think he's going to be more comfortable with next time. But I think in this set, it was pretty evident that he had a hard time dealing with it. Near the end, he was more comfortable with it in one specific scenario, but I think I would say that trying to break the blocks in a few more scenarios might be helpful. And I think one of the big reasons why he didn't was because they were on PS2 and it was often stone walls. And I think that being more comfortable on a stage like Small Battlefield or Yoshi's, where he's not always getting stone, might be a better way to set up scenarios where you can break said blocks. I think that at those lower percents, Acola was fishing for parries and spot dodges a lot. And I think that Light caught onto it in a few scenarios, but I think whenever he would hit his shield, I felt like he was just kind of letting Acola get those parries. I think at those lower percents using Fair as a parry mix-up, and then at the higher percents using Dare as a parry mix-up, and also using it to avoid those footstool dares out of shield, right? I think a really good thing that Acola did was he killed Light early a lot. And I think part of it came with Light not knowing how to deal with minecart all the time, but I think a lot of it was just Acola recognizing, okay, Nair on my shield, footstool there, right? Immediately you're dead, right? I think he died 3 or 4 times to that setup, and that's something you have to be wary of. And I think that there are a few moments in Advantage where he just like wasn't super aware of where Steve was going to be or like where the combo was going to end, and it felt like he got hit by a few reversals that maybe he didn't necessarily need to get hit by, or like he put himself out there to get hit by certain reversals that maybe weren't super necessary. I think those are the big things, and I think that pretty much sums up the core of why Acola beat Light in this set. Right. There were a few micro scenarios that, Light could have known. There were a few micro scenarios that Acola could have known, right? And Acola did some adaptations, right? Switching from swinging in the air to swinging on the ground. And so did Light, with the different timings and eventually, starting to not play the shield mix up as much and knowing, how to beat minecart with certain hitboxes and things like that, right? They're both obviously top level players. So I think when they play again, I think the big differences are Acola's going to play on the ground. And I think that Light's going to know how to deal with my card. I think those are the big things. All right, that was a mouthful. Again, if what I've talked about for the past whatever minutes is interesting to you and you'd like for me to talk about one of your own sets, I am doing VOD reviews. Prices are on my Twitter. It will be $10 for a best of 3 or a best of 5 that happens in a 3-0 fashion. And then $15 for a best of 5. And then if you'd like an hour live session, that would be $20. Right? All of this is on my Twitter. And again, go watch this on VG Bootcamp. Obviously, not my gameplay. Watch these excellent players on their channel. Also, in this description will be a verbal summary, or not a verbal summary. Excuse me, a written summary. So everything I've said here, I've put in my notes, and then the final page is essentially what you would earn if you were to get a VOD review from me. Like you'd get that final page. And that would, tell you what the next steps are, what to work on, what to improve, what you need to keep in the bank because you're doing them well, right? But other than that, I think that's all I've got to say, right? All the links are in the description. I'm open to discussion, right? What do you think that could be taken away from the set, right? Other than that, I will hopefully see you on my Twitter, in my DMs for a VOD review. I will see you there.